Back with the interview series, and this is part 9. And from last two parts, we are talking about the questions specific to migrations, uh, which involves ASR and Azure Migrate. And I'll put these part 7, 8, 9, and one more is there, part 10, in the playlist of the migration to Azure, so that once you go through the entire playlist, you would have the questions to test your knowledge. So without wasting any more time, let's dive into it. Azure interview questions, part 9. So the first question is, where does site recovery replicate data to? Well, if you have not studied, if you have not performed the ASR properly, then you might get caught in this question. This is a trick question because people think data is stored in the recovery vault, but it's not like that, right? It goes to the storage account. Earlier, there is another twist here. Earlier, we used to create a storage account, which was one of the prerequisite for the ASR, along with the VNet and recovery vault itself, where actually the cache, where actually the data is stored, and from that data, the VMs, the VMs are created, unmanaged disk. But the change happened in 2019, I think, and now site recovery replicates on-premises VMware VMs to or physical servers to manage disk in Azure. Okay, and site recovery process server writes replication logs to a cache storage. Okay, so the storage account that we have in the Azure, ASI creates it by itself, and process server writes replication logs to it. Okay, and these logs are used to create recovery points on Azure managed disk that have prefix of ASR seed disk. So if you're working recently after 2019, you'll find a lot of ASR seed disk. These are the managed disk which is being created through this ASR replication, and with the help of replication logs, recovery points gets decided. Okay, and when failover occurs, the recovery point you select is used to create a new target managed disk. This managed disk is attached to the VM in Azure. All right, so you see, it seems like a very simple question, but it is actually a tricky question. A lot of things are involved. Okay, and if you answered the way I told you, by talking about the points that I have mentioned, it will give a very good impression to the interviewers. Okay, so let's go and check the second question. Can I change the vault in which the config server is registered? Well, this is something, this kind of situation, if you're working in migration, you might have encountered. It could be like there is a huge on-premises infrastructure where they have their dev, their QA, or maybe their prod into different branches, okay, which is not even connected to each other, things like that. So when we say we need to migrate, and they have opted such kind of environment in the target, like they have different subscription for different environment. Now, this question, can I change the vault in which the config server is registered, comes from this kind of scenario where you have your dev ASR server, your config server, which is connected to the dev subscription vault on the Azure side. So it is registered to that vault. Now, you want to use the same config server once the dev environment is done, the failover is done, migration is done. You want to use the same server, then this situation comes. Okay, so can I change the vault in which the configuration server is registered? No. After a vault is associated with the configuration server, it can be changed. Okay, it's not that simple. You go and you just uncheck it. But of course, there is a workaround, and it involves a lot of effort. So it is always recommended don't do that. But if you want to do that, you need to deregister it. and need to go through the registration steps again, like a new config server. All right, so let's go to the another question. Well, this question also, the second question also, when you answer this question, if you involve the kind of environment I was talking about, the interviewer for sure understand that you have been working and you know what you're talking about, right? So, question number 3, can I keep the IP address on failover? Well, yes, of course you can. You know, during our demonstration, during our architectural thing, the playlist, the videos that we talked about, when we failover under the compute and network, we have all the settings that we can change. So yes, of course, you can change the IP address, but you need to make sure the IP address that you are uh, selecting, you are assigning, should be free. It should not be used by any other device. Okay. All right. Now, how far can I recover? Well, it's talking about the last failover point, the recovery point that you have. So, in the scenario of VMware to Azure, it's 72 hours. When you select the RPO, if you go and check, if you try to select more than 72 hours, it won't allow you. So 72 hours is the latest. N- Not the latest, but the oldest. So is the failover automatic? Well, no, it's not. And a lot of people get confused in this question because they think ASR provides an automatic failover disaster recovery, but it is not like that. ASR will keep everything so that you can spin up your environment as soon as possible. So you need to initiate the failover. You can do it through the portal, you can do it from with the help of PowerShell, but it's not automatic. All right, next question. How do you check if process server is actually pushing data? Well, this is the question that if you answer this correctly, it will give you, interviewer, a confidence that you've been working on ASR and you've been troubleshooting the issues like that we encounter quite often. So in order to see whether your process server is actually pushing data or not, you need to go to the process server. And under the task manager, you need to select the performance tab, resource monitor, and under network tab, you have process and network activity. Under that, cbengine.exe is the one which is responsible of sending a large volume of data to the Azure. You need to select cbengine.exe and check if it is sending data or not. Okay, cool. Now, can I change the target VM size or VM type before failover? Yes, of course we can. It is just like we explained in the previous question where we want to keep the IP addresses right here. So under the same option under computer and network, you can go ahead and change the VM size, VM type, and things like that. Okay. Now, how to refresh the config server from Azure portal? Well, this is the interesting one. It may possible that your customer who has the infrastructure on premises, they do not allow you to access their environment, and they have their own technicians in place so that you can talk to them and they can help you out. So whatever changes you're doing or you're making, there could be the reason that you need to refresh the config server. So there are two ways. You can go ask them to go ahead and restart the services that makes a dependency. The other guy should be available. There should be a mail trail going on. There should be a Slack channel, things like that. But you can do that from the Azure portal if you're aware. You need to go to the recovery vault. You need to go to the your site recovery infrastructure under the manage, and then you need to select the configuration server under VMware and physical machine, and then from there you'll find the option refresh config server. You'll refresh it. There are like few steps it will take. It will take 2 to 3 minutes and it will refresh the server. Okay. All right, question number 9, how to check the process server connection to the Azure blob storage? Well, it is almost the same steps that we performed for the process server, whether it is sending data or not. You need to go to the process server on the task manager, performance tab, resource monitor, under overview. Now here you need to go to the under overview in Resource Monitor. And earlier you were going into the Network tab and Process and Network Activity to check the pushing data. But here you need to go to the Overview, select cbengine.exe, and under TCP connection, check whether there is a connectivity from the process server to Azure storage. Okay. You can also check that from the Azure portal, but on Azure portal, it's not always that transparent. You might see there is no connection between process server and Azure storage. However, there is, but actually the VM are not sending the data. Maybe your some process got in a hung state. So this is the right way to check. Now, question number 10, if there is no connectivity from the process server to Azure, what all services we need to check? Well, there are so many services. Of course, you cannot remember them, but there is absolutely uh, documentation is available for all those kind of things. We need to check each and every services. But to help you out, I have mentioned all the services. Okay, it is CX Processor Server, Image Scout VX Agent, Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Agent, Microsoft Azure Site Recovery Services, and TMAN SVC. Okay, these are all the services I have mentioned. Similarly, when an interviewer asks this question, you cannot remember all of that. If you have, then it's well and good. If you don't, give them the few services like Azure Recovery Services Agent, Azure Site Recovery Services, or CX Process Server, and let him know there's so many services along with these that I can check on the MS Doc and help to fix the issue. Okay. All right. Now, how to add credentials in OVF template machine if you have forgot to add the credentials? It is like you are preparing your VMware environment for the ASR and you have downloaded or import the OVF template, created machine out of it, but you forget to add the credentials. Let's suppose you have Linux and Windows, both kind of machines, and you have only added the Linux credentials. Now you want to add the Windows. How do you do that? Well, to do that, you need to get back to the config server, log in, and launch the cspsc config tool.exe. You'll find that under program data ASR home systems bin, and under that you need to click add and add the credentials. Okay, so these questions and the last one, how to generate the passphrase, will tell the interviewer that you have worked on these scenarios so many times and you know you have faced this issue and you have fixed these issues. Okay, so how to generate the passphrase? Well, it happened with me. We lost the passphrase and there is few VMs that we need to install the mobility agent manually, and when we install it we need the passphrase to register it with the config server. So you can generate it from the passphrase.exe, which is present, generate passphrase.exe, which is present already in the same location, program data, ASR, home, SVS system, and bin, and you can generate it from there. Do not regenerate it because it will create issue for you. So these are the 12 questions that I have prepared for migration and ASR. Well, thank you for watching. Hope this is informative to you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.